Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri with my partner in publishing crime, I guess I could say.
Oh, I like it. I like that.
Amy, we got a review from somebody who called us snarky, and now I'm feeling
extra snarky.
No, I'm like, do I need to reflect on my snark? Because we don't mean to be snarky. We're just trying to be honest.
No, very true. And another mentioned compassion. And, I think it's fair to let everybody, listening know that, the reason we are so passionate about this, because a lot of pretty much everything that we talk about is not particularly new. In regards to common sense book marketing, understanding your market, being an author, and the journey of authorship. These are not groundbreaking things that we're covering here. So, and we're big proponents of education. Penny, you for sure, you teach a lot. Like, educating yourself as an author is part of the package deal. If you want to put a book out there, there's a lot of education involved in that. Yeah. And so, I guess we probably do come off a little bit snarky when, over and over again, we see authors making very simple mistakes when there's a lot of really awesome guidance out there to prevent those mistakes from happening. And not just from us, from lots of people that really know this work and even authors that have had a lot of success that give tips and recommendations too. So I guess we get a little snarky with the lack of self-education when people don't own that part of this process of being an author and becoming successful.
Well, but I also think that one of the reasons that we started this, because to your point, not this, as much as we would like to say this is this groundbreaking book marketing podcast, it's not, it really isn't groundbreaking. This stuff is out there. Or you can go into a writer's conference, any writer's conference, and, hear a lot of the same things that we're saying. But I think the thing that really, that we really want, the goal, the passion behind this podcast is we are demanding that y'all bring your A game. And I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm not nudging you to do that. I may be trying to inspire you to do that, but I'm also demanding that you do that. And part of the reason for this is because you cannot compete in a world where there are 4,500 books published every day. And that number is probably low now, just because that's an old number. And you cannot compete in this world without bringing your A game. And that's the long and short of it. So, if that makes me sound snarky, then snarky BI. But it's not because we are, this isn't because we're diminishing the challenges that authors face, because there are a lot of them. And a lot of it has to do with the learning curve. Amy and I were talking about the fact, once again, she was saying, Penny, you really need to do a lot more video. And, there's a learning curve to doing anything new, right? There's a learning curve to creating your first blog post. And there's a learning curve to creating more video content or whatever it is that you're going to do. And I think that hopefully this podcast will help to reduce maybe that learning curve a little bit. And we don't mean to obsess so much over our reviews, but here we go. We are just obsessing over that.
I know. Well, because we appreciate the reviews so much. We absolutely love the feedback. So please continue to post reviews. Yes, we will read it, but that's awesome. That's the whole point of writing reviews.
Yeah.
We want your feedback. We appreciate it. But it is really interesting to get those different perspectives. But you're right, Penny. That's why we're here, why we're doing this, because we want to reduce that learning curve. We want to let's just get it all out there, dirty laundry on the table. This is what y'all have, you're going to be faced with. Let's talk about it and let's talk you through it.
Yeah. Because, truly, I think that one of the worst things that anybody can do with a new author is to pat them on the head and say, everything's going to be okay, because they'll spend a whole lot of money doing a whole lot of stuff with very little results. And that is, not only is that a terrible way to gain, not only that terrible way to launch your author career, but it's costly, right? And that's, we've been around, I mean, collectively between Amy and I, we have 31 years in this industry, right? So we've seen a lot of stuff, and it doesn't certainly make us omniscient, right? Like we're not knowers of all, but between, I think, what we see other people doing that has just blown us away, that has just been tremendous, and some of the advice that we've given authors, the goal of this podcast is really to help you to understand that there literally are no shortcuts to publishing success, none. And a lot of people out there are trying to sell you shortcuts, honestly.
That's a very good point.
You will never get a shortcut from us, whether you listen to our podcast or hire us, or you see me in person if you've ever met me at a conference. But we do appreciate your feedback, as Amy said. So definitely our contact information is in the show notes. And be sure to reach out to us and let us know if you have show ideas or what you'd like to see more of, or if you'd like us to stop talking about our reviews when people call us snarky. That we can definitely do that. But we appreciate all reviews. I mean, much like I say, I know that I kind of whined about a review that I got on my book, but we always appreciate all reviews and all feedback and all of that. So definitely keep writing those reviews. And here's a good learning tip. When you write your review, definitely, we appreciate the show feedback, what you liked, what you'd like to see more of, but mention what you learned or what you're going to implement, because that's a really great learning tool for you. So here's something that I'm going to implement from the show, because I can almost guarantee you with that kind of a putting your review together that way will also actually help you to implement that. So if you listen for us to 20 minutes or however long we meander through our topics, I know sometimes it goes much longer. If you could walk away with one solid thing to do, then you have, your time has been well spent. So today we are going to talk about your first 30 days on Amazon, right? So the first 30 days of the life of your book, because Amy, we've talked about this a lot, right? Amongst ourselves, just in terms of the importance of that time period.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned it recently, not like this is the first time it's ever come up, but the way you worded it in a blog post recently just really struck me as that is so true. And, subconsciously, for me at least, it's what we've been doing for your books for a while, Penny. Like, this is a real methodology that we follow, and it absolutely works. And so this is totally one of those things where, we walk the walk. We don't just talk the talk. This is quite literally what we do for each of your releases. We know it works. We know the process. And it's just a really smart way to plan to reduce the sometimes chaos and anxiety of, what releasing a new book is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times what happens is that authors go into this paralysis, right? And there's a lot of things that they could be doing, and they don't really know which one to start with because it all seems appealing, or maybe none of it seems appealing because you just don't have time, right? Sometimes. Right. And so their book sits there and sits there and sits there. And, one of the issues one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is because the first 30 days is not just important because it's the first 30 days of the life of your book, which is obviously key. But it hurts your Amazon visibility and your algorithm in a way that is almost impossible to recover from. So if we're being contacted by an author, let's say, and their book has been up on Amazon for more than a month, and their book is sitting somewhere around 400,000 sales rank, it's going to take a real effort for it to get higher, because what's happened now is that the Amazon system has learned your book. And what they've learned is nobody cares about it. And I don't mean, again, I know that sounds super snarky. There I go again, being snarky.
It's funny. All these things are now seeming more obvious.
I know. I'm so much more self-aware. Thank you for mentioning that. I would just like my snark award, please, if I could have that now.
But no, that's the reality. That's the truth. And we're here to tell you all the truth.
But it's true. And it's hard to recover from that. And so that becomes sort of this cycle, right? Where authors they're like, well, I didn't really know what to do to start with, which again, I completely understand, because there's a lot of options out there. And sometimes you're not really sure what to do first. And in many cases, the first thing that seems like a good idea is send all your friends and family to your Amazon book page. And surprisingly, talk about another reality, a lot of times I hear from authors, I mean, actually, in almost every single time that I know that an author has done this, they say, well, my friends and family aren't buying my book. That always happens. I don't know why it is. It's not because they're not trying to be supportive, but it's one of those weird like laws of nature in publishing that.
Right.
So, but then beyond that, they kind of start to scratch their head and they think, I don't really know what to do. And then, 30 days goes by and 60 days goes by. And then Amazon just continues to, books keep getting released. And so, Amazon continues to devalue your book, which is really a shame. The upside is, as we're going to discuss in this podcast, is that you don't necessarily have to do a lot. Like, we're not talking about quit your day job and do marketing 24/7. There are some things and some strategies that you can start early on and plan for. So the first 30 days of the life of your book, you're going to use the ramp up time to those 30 days to plot out what you're going to do, right? So you're going to set a plan. And we actually have a planner. It's a free planner, and I'll put the link certainly in the show notes. You can also get it on our website. Amy, talk a little bit about some pre-stuff that authors can do.
Yeah, just to start getting on your radar. So if these are things that you haven't done before, again, getting the timing right is really important, but also, knowing, like you said, Penny, these strategies are really doable. We're not talking about super complex stuff here. Because, and Penny, you've mentioned this many times, Amazon wants to give your book a lot of great juice out of the gate, but you have to support that. You have to give them a reason to support you back. So even just doing a handful of really strategic things and getting those prepped and ready can really make a huge difference. So we're talking about some early blogger pitching. Obviously, getting anything on somebody's blog is going to start sending in prep for sending traffic to your book page. Setting up special pricing. If you're allowed to discount your book, we work with a lot of authors that do a special price, like specifically for their pre-order. Mm-hmm. And they use that as a way to get more people to do their pre-order sales and things like that. Running ads on BookBub, another really great way to send targeted genre and topic appropriate traffic to your page. Setting up a Goodreads giveaway to generate some early reviews. It's a really great way to get books in hands right away as soon as the book is out. So you're that much more likely to start getting reviews populated on your page sooner. And you'll also build followers, your Goodreads followers. And then you can also get a leg up on talking to your local libraries, because library success is statistically tied to, overall book sales on retail markets as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. And those are all things that you can, that aren't necessarily going to happen until your book's street date, until your book is, until your book is live.
Right. But prepping for them is important, and understanding how they work. And the great thing, again, I can't emphasize it enough. None of these things that I mentioned come with a really steep learning curve.
Right.
So don't get freaked out. Like, these are all the things that I listed are all things that are very intuitive and easy to run through on your own, even with very little or no marketing background. So just know that going in, that the things that we mentioned here can easily be done by a book marketing novice with just a little bit of prep work. So knowing, how to get all your ducks in a row.
Right, exactly. And we're going to do a separate show on pre-orders, because it's too much to kind of, it's a different type of conversation than we want to have today. But I will say that, and I'm actually going to outline the show here shortly, but I will say that, a lot of times when when you get the final book cover and, the book is getting ready to go up on Amazon, that's a really exciting time. And you feel like you really want to pull the lever on a lot of different marketing things. And that's the kind of time, as Amy said, you can start to plan out doing, Goodreads things and building up your presence there. But what about reaching out to your mailing list? So whether or not you have a reading team, a street team, an ARC team, whatever, you may not have that. You may just have, a small little, what you feel is a paltry mailing list. You could start to kind of warm them up, right? So let them know that you have a book coming out. Don't send them the link to the pre-order page, because more than likely you're doing this too early. You're doing this pretty early anyway, and your book isn't necessarily up for pre-order. But usually when I'm focused on the first 30 days, I try to reserve big things for 2 weeks ahead of the street date, because I also believe that if you're emailing your mailing list, so you should be emailing your mailing list frequently, just so that when you get to launch date, they aren't all of a sudden getting an email from you going, well, who is this person, right? So you want to warm up your list a little bit, but save the big stuff for on publication date or just ahead of publication date, because people typically they don't buy a book too far in advance, right? So if you put your book up there 6 months out and you're emailing your newsletter, you're like, oh, go buy my book. Very few of them will. And that's part of the reason why the more that you can start to push everything into that 30-day window, the better, right? And this also gives you an opportunity too to get a sense for what your open rate is on your newsletter, to see what kind, again, it helps to gauge what kind of a response that you might be able to get when you finally do send your launch email.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because at the end of the day, book marketing is still a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to be doing this for a while. Sorry if that's a spoiler alert. but truly, so there's really a fine line between preparing for a really strong release, a really strong 30 days, and then working yourself into the ground, to the extent that all that effort that you're putting into months and months and months ahead of time won't really pay you back to the degree that you're probably hoping it will, considering what you're putting in. So I think that's really smart to remind people, Penny, that it really makes more sense to, yes, be prepared, but be prepared to condense a lot of really strategic elements to support that release. So really focusing on that 2 weeks before the official release date is really all you really need. If you're prepared, that's really all you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are things like you talked about. So, reserving your ebook promos. And do you like to do, I know you are our Goodreads expert. Do you like to do Goodreads giveaways ahead of launch day and then post launch day? Or would you recommend just doing one?
I if you're able to, I like setting them up so they kind of run into your launch date.
Okay.
Or kind of spill over a little bit. I think that's a nice sweet spot. It's not too far in advance. And, it also, for what it's worth, I'll be totally honest, it makes it easier logistically, because then, you're going to have books, things like that. Because there's a lot of elements that you have to consider if you start doing stuff really far in advance, logistically. So I think keep it easy on yourself. You already have a lot going on. You're releasing a book. You've got other strategies planned. So I think it just makes sense. It's great timing. But I think in regards to also reducing some of the stress around, like, will I have copies available? Will everything come together exactly how I want? Kind of doing a Goodreads giveaway that kind of revs up into your release and maybe spills over a few days or into that first weekend is just a really great sweet spot.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I would also say that if you can, to the degree that you can, start your Amazon ads early. So I really like to try to rev those up ahead of launch day. I love running them, especially the first 30 days of the life of your book on Amazon, because Amazon ads will also help Amazon to learn your book quicker. So one of the things that I like to do, and again, we're going to address some of the pre-order stuff, so I want to try to keep these topics separate. We're going to address the pre-order stuff in another call, but I actually like to do the Amazon ads, starting them up 2 weeks prior to launch date, because one of the things that I've discovered recently is that Amazon ads used to gain traction a lot quicker, right? So I could start an Amazon ad set and I would see the ads start to get traction within 4 or 5 days. And now what I'm seeing is that it's taking a bit longer. And I think just because a lot of people are doing Amazon ads, so you're dealing with much more competition there. So the longer that you can let your ads settle, the better it is for, the better it'll be for your book, the quicker that Amazon will learn your book and be able to place your book in the right genre, even though you've picked your genre and you've done your Amazon optimization, et cetera, hopefully. But it's very, very helpful if you can give Amazon just a little bit more lead time to get people, to that page. And I was telling Amy that we've been seeing some tremendous success with Amazon ads that we've been managing for our authors. But the success often comes after I'm sort of sitting in that dashboard for 30 days, because these ads just really, really start to gel the older that they get. So start them up 2 weeks before if you can. Keep them running through a minimum of 30 days. I realize there's an ad spend to consider as well, but it's definitely worth it. Amy, talk about the Amazon book page, because
yes.
I think what happens sometimes is authors kind of throw their book up there. And I will tell you, we were just talking when we were in the green room. Did you love how I inserted that? We were talking in the green room about how I'm releasing from book to bestseller. I'm literally already sick of that book. I mean, I love it because it's awesome. It's probably one of the best books I've written in a long time, but I'm also kind of tired of it. So my inclination is like, throw it up on Amazon and just see what happens. The term throw it up on Amazon, which of course I would never do because Amy would hit me, but the term throw it up on Amazon impacts an Amazon book page, does it not?
Oh, absolutely. And, we get it, just like Penny's saying, at some point you're just like, I just need to get it up there and get on to the next phase, because that's the reality of when you put that much time and effort into a book. And I think to some degree, there's nothing wrong with that, because at some point you just need to pull the trigger and get it up there. And we do actually coach our clients a lot on, putting emphasis on the right things. So stressing about like that exact moment the book goes live on Amazon, and making the assumption that, thousands of people are going to be there and judge every little mistake that you made. Like, that's not really what's going on, but you definitely want to get everything in order before you start pushing a lot of traffic that way. So you want to finesse your Amazon book page. If you're not doing a pre-order, which is fine, but in that first week for sure, because the reality is you got it up there, but now that it's up there, it's amazing what kind of brain space you've relieved a little bit. So you can kind of take a different perspective. So if you are able to adjust your subtitle, your description, you want to look at these things, because you can also see what else has been released recently, especially those by best-selling authors, and get some really great inspiration. What's working right now on the bestseller list now that my book is actually out there? How are these authors approaching their subtitles? How creative are they getting? How are they organizing their descriptions? What are these really powerful phrases they're using? You want to take that inspiration and use it, to make sure your book is the best product you can put out there. And you'll also, like I said, you want to check the competition, see what they're up to. You should also get a second opinion. Not a friend who will just pay you lip service. Again, back to the patting you on the head. That's not going to serve you very well. If you have a network of authors that you respect, that have been at this for a while, that will give you, solid feedback, ask them. Otherwise, consult with a marketing professional who can also give you feedback from a sales perspective, because that's something that, that we really focus on too, not just as storytellers, but we really put on the lens of how are you going to really trigger those emotional attachments with people that are potentially going to buy your book. And that's really a sales thing. That's something that you need a little training in. So get some balance and get some feedback on how you could potentially really finesse that description during that first week your book is up, to ensure that those first 30 days are really strong.
Yeah, because I think that, if you're putting in all of this effort and you're doing Goodreads and you're doing ebook promos and things like that, and then you're sending people to a book page, it's kind of like inviting people to your house for a party and you really have nothing set up, or you thought the party was next week, or like, oh my God, I still need to vacuum. I mean, that's really, you're really essentially inviting people into into your house. So I think the book page so overlooked. And again, I get it. Like, you're done with the book, you want to get it up there, but the details matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we get clients, or excuse me, authors that reach out to us that may be prospective clients, the first thing I do, if the book is out, I look at the book page. And I can't tell you how often there are just some really obvious things that they could do to help themselves out. And it kind of hurts my heart a little bit, because it's like they're reaching out, they want assistance. And it bums me a little bit that it's like, oh my gosh, these are just such simple things that they could have done earlier, before even reaching out to us, So those are really important. And like I said, I can't harp on it enough, checking out what is working for some of the authors on the bestseller list, because I guarantee you're not going to see a lot of people that just threw a book up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is really great. And I also want to mention too, that just because, so we are focused on the first 30 days, doesn't necessarily mean that your reviews on your Amazon book have to start populating on day one, right? Yep. In fact, I usually like to wait about 48 hours, and that's just kind of my own sort of personal thing. I like to make sure that, even though Amazon does realize, and it's not against Amazon's terms of service, like with NetGalley and advanced reader copies and other kinds of things, people do get the book early and can put the review up on the day of. Don't necessarily feel pressured to do so. So when we talk about the Amazon momentum, yes, you want to start getting reviews, hopefully in the first week, but it doesn't mean they all have to show up on day one, right? So that's another thing to kind of consider, is that you can also space those out. So I think that the other thing to make sure that you take care of ahead of time is, what are you going to do on your blog? What are you going to do in your social media? There are, you may not feel comfortable doing lots and lots before the release, but certainly when you're in that 30-day window, you should have a plan in place. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do ebook discount promos like every single day of those 30 days, but you're probably doing one, and maybe, as Amy indicated, a Goodreads giveaway as well. So you should have at the ready social media images that you can just, populate into whatever platforms that you're using, and figure out, the hashtag that you're going to be using. And I cannot emphasize enough, do this ahead of time, because on launch day, and, you're going to maybe be getting emails from people, hopefully, right? You're going to maybe hear from readers who are so excited to get your book. There's a lot of activity, and this is busy work, right? So you can do that early on and get that done, and just be ready to go. Just have all those images, ready to go and ready to get out there. Yes, absolutely.
Setting up or prepping for blog topics and especially prepping for social media posts, is something that is so much easier to do in advance. I can't even tell you the amount of stress that takes off when you can say, okay, I'm going to sit down and focus on creating images. It's so much easier than when you're in the moment. So definitely take advantage, do that for yourself. Another thing that we absolutely have to talk about that has worked beautifully for you in the past, Penny, is a special promotion.
Right.
Planning a special promotion, especially that first couple of weeks that the book is out. And we like to do a BOGO, and a BOGO can actually take a couple different variations. One is buy one, get one, and another one is buy one, give one. So a buy one, get one is where you're in a position to offer buyers something else, whether it's a book on your backlist, a great resource that you've created. If you do any sort of coaching or any sort of nonfiction topic where you can provide your advice, that's another great example. And basically you ask them to email you a copy of their purchase receipt in exchange for whatever you're offering them. It's awesome. It works really great. People love an extra bonus for buying a book. I can't tell you how well this works. And then the other option, the buy one, give one, I really love this one because it's a great way to also get more books in more hands. So essentially what you would do at that point, you ask buyers to, again, send you a copy of their purchase receipt, and then also include the name and email address of a friend or colleague that you will gift a free Kindle copy to. So not only are you getting more books in hands, you're also getting additional email addresses for your mailing list. Like, there's really so many benefits to this, and you're generating good word of mouth. And I know a lot of people are breaking out in a cold sweat because I said free books,
Right.
but really, honestly, you can't negate the importance of just, again, getting more books in hands. And then also the fact that you are supporting that personal recommendation. So being able to give somebody a book and say that so-and-so said that you would really enjoy this. I'm honored to be sending you a copy. I mean, that is huge. That is networking gold right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think that is also something that you can occupy your time with before the book comes out. And hopefully some of these ideas have kind of sparked like, oh, I have a book coming out. Just the prep work that you can do ahead of time so that you go into the first 30 days of the life of your book on Amazon in a way that is going to support your book and help Amazon to learn what your book is about. And we haven't even talked about Amazon optimization, because here's the funny thing about Amazon optimization, which, as you know, like it's somewhat of a cornerstone of what we do among many other things. I love doing Amazon optimization, but I don't necessarily, like when I launched my my latest edition of How to Sell Books by the Truckload on Amazon, I didn't add in I added in some keywords in there, but I didn't finalize those keywords until 2 or 3 weeks into the life of the book. So that isn't necessarily something, I mean, you want to pick the right categories, don't get me wrong, but that is something that can happen in that 30 days. It doesn't have to happen on day one. Because we see that a lot, Amy, don't we? Where authors are because the other thing though too is that keep in mind, you have, you're going to be sitting in the new release list for a while, hopefully, right? So the new release list on Amazon has its own kind of juice attached to it. I like to add those keywords and the categories a little bit after release so that it kind of juices the book yet again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, creating a second wave. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, creating a second wave. And you and I have talked about that too with our authors in terms of, don't obsess about adding those on day one. I mean, you definitely want to have the right categories and start to pepper it with some keywords, but you get a little bit of juice adding them later also.
Right. I think that's a really good point. We do get a lot of authors that stress about that. So if that's been something that anybody listening has stressed about, it's normal. It's fine. But yeah, I agree with you, Penny. Focusing on nailing the right categories is super important. And then I would say for those placeholder keywords, like stick to the ones that are obvious for your genre, for your topic. Don't get too niche or obscure with things that are really particular to your book itself, because people don't know you yet. They don't know to search that way. So if anything, go a little more vague, a little more general, broader topics for your keywords, just to get you in there, and then do your actual keyword research and start refining those for your second wave. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think that, again, we don't mean to imply that once the 30 days is over on Amazon that you can just, set it and forget it and let your book kind of see what happens with it. But setting the stage, that first 30 days really sets the stage for the life of the book. And it's important for it to give it some momentum, to give it, a leg up, and hopefully to give it some steam that it's going to continue to do well for you. So thank you, Amy. I appreciate all the ideas that you came up with for this show. And this was a really, really fun topic. I'm glad that we covered this. We are going to cover the pre-order. And I did want to mention, I know we got super sidetracked with talking about the reviews early on in the show. We neglected to mention that we are still doing the Can This Book Be Saved? We actually got one entry already, which I'm super excited about. And I'm not going to name the author just yet because we're going to cover her in our next show for sure. But the details for that will be in the show notes. If you want to submit your book for a quick evaluation at the end of the show, we are definitely interested in helping you out to see what can be fixed. As Amy said earlier on in the show, sometimes it's just a very, very small thing. I want to thank you again so much for listening. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell and the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. Thank you.